Hello my friends, and welcome back to another episode of MTD North America. And today I am at Starrag in Kentucky. And we're working with Starrag, but also the precision group known as Bumotec. You guys might know about these guys. Really, really cool machines. And I'm with my friend Greg today. We're going to learn a little bit more about how these machines work and how they can benefit you. So Greg, thank you so much for being a part of MTD.
Thank you, Tony, for coming.
Well, Greg, you and I have talked a lot about the incredible attributes of this machine, and I know we really want to focus on it being a one-off machine.
Right.
Can you describe to our audience exactly what that means and how that works?
Sure. So think of it in these terms, that we put raw material in, and out the back side comes a finished part. So this is a peak part, for example, or a bone plate, for example. It can be bar fed or raw blank. But the idea is to do all the operations in one cycle. So we don't have a grinding machine, a milling machine, a lathe, super finishing, hand deburring. All is done on one platform. So when the parts come off the machine, it goes right to the box and can be shipped.
Well, that's an important thing to understand. And I know there's a lot of audience out there that immediately get what you're saying.
Sure.
And then there's some guys that go, well, that's not possible. And then there's other guys that go, well, show me.
Yeah.
Right? So. Yeah. You just showed me a really sophisticated part, in my opinion.
Sure.
That second one even, I mean, maybe you know more than I do, but that one looks really fancy to me. And someone's going to go, you can't do that on a one-off. Are you kidding me right now?
Sure.
And then there's also the argument, well, they go, well, I can do almost the entire part on my machine.
Yeah.
The sophistication of this Bumotec machine, we are talking no deburring, no finishing of any kind. I mean, you take it off of this machine and it's in a box ready to ship.
Exactly. And that's the value proposition of it. You know, we do all the turning, the milling, the grinding, the super finishing. We do that with in mind that when the part comes out, it doesn't have to make a second stop or a second operation. I think if you're not willing to do that, this is probably not the right technology for you. In addition to that, this is autonomous machining. So we like to run lights out. But to have that, you have to have a robust process. The process has to be repeatable. It has to be proven. And then you have to have a platform to run that process on. And then when you run it lights out. So it's very productive.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of nailed it. When you think about the industry as a whole trying to get to that lights out machining.
Yes.
And then the questions that come into play, am I able to produce that type of quality over and over again without me being there? These questions are not in play on this Bumotec machine.
No, they're not. And I think a customer will come into mind, you know, how do I do that? What is it, the software? Is it the tooling? How do we get lights out? And I think it's a little bit of everything. So we talked earlier before about, you know, the Esprit software. So you have to have a good post. You have to have proven tooling. You know, we use the Rego Fix to make sure we have, you know, precision run out. We use robust direct drive spindles, linear drives. So there's no chance for a ball screw to fail. This machine, we have close to 1,000 of the S191 series machines out, and it's really reached its peak. I think anything that comes beyond this will be very, very impressive because this machine is just, you know, it speaks for itself. It's a 24/7 lights out machine.
I believe you mentioned to me as well, Greg, that this technology or this specific machine is more or less about 15 years old.
Correct.
So when you're talking about whatever the evolution might be, we're really talking about some significant increase in technology.
Exactly. And, you know, just to make comment to that, we were one of the first, I think, if not the first, to use linear drives. And when you make parts like bone plates and you work very close with the spindle on the part, one of the things that you look for is a very, very good finish. And with the ball screw, sometimes you pick up noise. With no ball screws on the machine, with linear drives, it's very smooth surfacing. So that's a value a customer can see right away.
It's important to understand, and thank you for sharing that message because a lot of times, like you mentioned, there could be a little bit of chatter, or that could be a little bit less tool life, let's say, because of that chatter or the rigidity that's going on. And to reiterate again, guys, we're not talking about any kind of polish or deburring after this, so that is a significant point of what sets you guys apart from some of the other machines out there.
Exactly, and if you think about ball screws, and you think about machining centers that have ball screws, it's a very traditional way to move an axis. But you pick up the noise, and then you have a burr, and then you have to get rid of the burr. It's difficult to do it. So we thought it through. And linear drives, they just confer a benefit for not having to deburr or finish after the part leaves the machine.
Greg, I can't tell you how many times I've listened to the ball screws sing to me, and I go, well, it's not that bad yet. We don't need to change it out, but obviously I'm not getting the finish that you guys are getting on here either.
Exactly, and it's just judged in the part. You can see it in the part.
Well, you and I have also talked, but I think this is incredibly important to share with the audience out there. We talked about this being the lab, right?
Sure.
So for someone who is interested in this type of machine, that maybe it's unique, or maybe they want a second one or a third one kind of a thing, you guys are willing to actually do live demos for them to help them understand. You'll machine their parts for them so that you can say, guys, not only in theory can we do it, in practice we can do it as well.
Exactly. You know, if you look at this machine, we have Swiss made written on it. I think it's on the side. That's very important because the content of the machine, to have that Swiss made stamp on it, it has to be something like 90%. We don't make machines here. We don't assemble machines. That's all done in Switzerland. We receive the latest technology. What we do here is develop processes. So if a customer comes to us and they say, how do you make this part? That's where we step in. We have Switzerland's technology, but then we step in with how do we program, how do we cut, you know, what is the material going to be like? And we optimize all of that stateside for our customers. So they come back to us and we can really talk about the process and improving their process. So our mandate really is developing processes in this laboratory.
And that makes sense as well. You know, something that comes to mind, Greg, is that a lot of times people will have a machine and they'll go, well, how can I make this part? And there's a lot of complication that goes into how I'm going to do it.
Sure.
You guys are often looked to as the staple for, well, we can pretty much do anything, right? So if a customer comes to you, there's a really good chance that no matter how complicated that part is, because we know some of our design engineers out there are getting really creative on their CAD software.
Exactly.
And then they send it to the engineers, and the engineers go, I can't make this.
Yeah.
But you guys take on that challenge and really produce excellent parts from unique situations and difficult situations.
Exactly, exactly. And we, you know, the kinematic of this machine lends itself to machining very complex, feature-rich parts. Machining centers you can do that on, but normally it takes a couple of machines, a lathe, maybe a grinding machine. But with our machine, with the ability that it has to turn, to mill, to grind, to broach, to super finish, to do some of the special processes that we've developed, that we own, it would be hard to duplicate that on a standard machining center. On a precision mill turn like this, we can do it. That's what we do.
You just named a lot of different applications all rolled into one machine, and I agree with you. You think about that's typically going to be 3 or 4 operations not done in one machine. So I know there's some people wondering right now, how many axes is this machine?
Yeah, it's an 8-axis machine, and we, you know, it sounds like a lot, but really you're machining with 5 axes, but it's an 8-axis machine.
So knowing this position, this company, the machine for over 20 years now, Greg,
Sure.
You've been doing this forever.
Yep.
When we say, well, 8 axis sounds like a lot,
Yeah.
when we're talking about someone just learning this machine, how easy or difficult do you believe that would be as a person who's just getting into it?
That's a good question. I think you have to look at the background of the person and what they're accustomed to doing. You know, what kind of cam system do they use? Have they worked even in 5-axis? Or they work with trunnions? Have they worked with mill turns? So we always like to talk to operators and see what they know and how comfortable they are with running multi-axis machines. You know, this machine is, we call it a precision mill turn. So it has attributes of a mill, attributes of a lathe, attributes of a grinding machine. And when we interview customers, we just ask them, we say, you know, what is your background? What are you accustomed to working with? And so I think it depends on what the person has been running in their past, what they've been exposed to. If they've been exposed to nothing, it's a good ground, you know, base to start with to say, look, this is how you need to think to make a 5-axis part. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it does. But I just for someone who's out there to clarify, if we've been running 5-axis type work, we're probably going to learn a little quicker. And obviously we have the Fanuc software here, interface, which is a lot of people are already familiar with.
Sure.
So I'd imagine the transition from one 5-axis machine to this, you know, 8-axis machine, going to be pretty okay, right? We're going to learn quickly, and this is familiar already.
Yeah, I think the learning curve, again, it depends on if they've run 5-axis machines. It's going to be quicker if they have familiarity with 5-axis. But again, it just depends on what their background and what their exposure to software is, and multi-axis, and thinking in the multi-axis.
It is a different mindset, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Yeah, and back in my days, guys, you already know, I'm a 3-axis guy. I get confused already. So talking with Greg, I'm always super fascinated with what can be done on a machine like the Bumotec. Now, probably a rhetorical question at this point, but automation can come with it, robots or bar feeders or anything like that?
Yeah, we have a laboratory in California, and on the machine out there we have a pallet system, 10-station pallet, so we can load either raw blank or we can unload finished material from the pallet system. I call it the lunch tray. So you can run autonomous lights out, you can have a robot in front, we do that, but we really like using the B-axis spindle of the machine with shunt grippers where we can pick a finished part up, load it in the tray, and then unload it from the back. Alternatively, we can load a raw blank, and then we don't bar feed, and we unload the finished blank after it's finished. So,
regardless, we are, whatever the customer wants to do, creating that lights out opportunity for them.
Exactly, and we give the customer our opinion. That's, I think, the most important thing that we can offer is our view. How would we do it? How they do it, it may be different. But we try to offer, with all the experience that we can harness over the many years that Bumotec has been in business. This is our view. Maybe it's not the same part, it's similar, but this is how we would make it. And we offer that to the customer, and I think they appreciate that.
I do too, and it's great to know that some people still value our opinion, isn't it?
Exactly, yes.
All these years of work, you think it would be worth something.
Exactly,
so,
yeah.
Well, I think this is important to convey, guys, just to reiterate, because this Bumotec machine, high precision, one and done, lights out. It's, 8-axis. This is the type of machine that can really get parts out the door without having to stress about, is it going to be right? So really, Greg, thank you for being a part of MTD.
My pleasure.
Sharing this information and wisdom with us. If someone has more questions about how they can get in touch with you and learn more about the machine itself, where would they find you?
The easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn or my email. My email is greg.dunkley@starrag.com.
LinkedIn, email, website, perfect. Everyone will be able to find you. Thanks. Well, Greg, again, thank you so much for being a part of MTD. Guys, I hope you've learned something today. Really amazing machine.
Thank you.